Hi, everyone. I just want to go over chapter 5 and your homework problems and give you sort of an example of what we're looking for this. So what I've actually done is put in the data from number 1. For your homework assignment, you're actually going to do 2, 3, and 4, but this is for question number 1 if you want to look at that under the computational problems in chapter 5. So what number 1 says is a study was conducted to examine the effect of an herbal formula for insomnia. A group of 13 volunteers was recruited and randomly assigned to take either the herbal formula or the placebo. The following table lists the hours of sleep that each person had on the night he or she took either the formula or the placebo. And then there's a table that gives us the group and the hours of sleep. So what I've done here in SPSS is to put in our variables to start with. So I put in group and then labeled that group, the values. So here I just labeled 0 as the placebo group and 1 as the formula group. You can use any number to represent either group and identified that as a nominal variable. Hours of sleep is my second variable, and I don't need to put any values in there because that's just going to be a scaled variable. It's numeric for how many hours of sleep. So we can even label that hours of sleep. And then what I've done is entered in the data, and this is just entered from the chart, the group indicated by either 0 for placebo or 1 for formula, and then the hours of sleep that they had the night that they took that. So what we want to do is start with what is most likely a hypothesis. So when we look at these variables and the question, if we were to create a hypothesis, we might say something like the group that took the formula will have a greater number of hours sleep than the group that took the placebo. That would be a directional hypothesis. You could just say there would be a significant difference between the placebo and the formula group. If you were going to do the null hypothesis, that would say that there was no difference in hours of sleep between the placebo group and the formula group. And so you want to be sure that you write out your hypothesis to start with. And then we're going to be calculating a t-test and a Mann Whitney U test for this data, just to get you comfortable doing both. So I've got all my data in here. I've got those that information put in. I have done my hypothesis and my null hypothesis. And so I'm ready to start analyzing my data. So we're going to start with the t-test. So to start with the t-test, you're going to go to Analyze, and you're going to compare means, and then you're going to choose Independent Samples t-test. And so what you'll see actually is you'll have two variables over here. Your test variable is hours of sleep, and your grouping variable is the group that they are in. So whether that's the placebo or the formula. And so we need to define the groups here. 0 is group 1 and 1 is group 2. And so those are our grouping variables. And those have to be defined in the way that they are labeled within your listing. So if you called them 1 and 2, you would need to label these 1 and 2. Then you just click OK, and you get some output. So here your output, it's going to tell you how many, starting with some descriptives, it's going to tell you how many hours of sleep, how many people are in the placebo group, how many are in the formula, what is the mean hours of sleep. And so you can see here, the placebo group had 4.4 hours on average, and the formula group had 4.9 hours average. So when you look at this, the descriptives, the formula group did on average sleep longer, right? So they slept longer by about 0.5, by about a half an hour. And so, that tells us one thing. So that just gives us some descriptives that yes, the formula group slept half an hour longer on average than the placebo group. But what we really want to know, is there a difference between the two groups? And we can't determine that by just comparing these means. We have to do inferential statistics, and in this case, the t-test. And so when we do this independent samples t-test, you're going to come down here into this category, and what you're going to see is your significance is 0.381, and that's going to tell you that this is not a significant difference, because remember, we're looking for, we have a 95% confidence interval, and we're looking for our p-value to be less than 0.05. So this would not be significant. There would not be a significant difference, because this number right here that we're looking at, if this number was 0.047, then we would say it was a significant difference. And so that's how we read this. When you go to write it out, you would want to make sure you're writing for the homework problem, that you're writing your null hypothesis and your regular hypothesis, and then you're writing out the answer that there is or is not a significant difference. When you read studies, you see p-values, and so this is going to be your p-value. This significance value right here is going to be your p-value. So you could write something like the formula. There was no difference between the hours of sleep between the formula and the placebo group, and in parentheses you could put p equals 0.381. And we'll practice sort of writing out these results in our synchronous time. But this is sort of your p number here that you're looking for. So even though in our descriptives, it looks like the formula group did get more hours of sleep, when we analyze the data, it shows that there isn't any difference between the two groups. So also, I want you to calculate the Mann Whitney U. So getting the opportunity to do that, you're going to go up to analyze. We're going to use the same data set, analyze, and we're going to go to non-parametric tests. And so that is down here. And we are going to go to independent samples. It will definitely, you'll get to this window here to start with, and you need to go over to fields, and you'll need to put in, I've already put these in once, but the variables will show up on the left. Our test fields are going to be hours of sleep, and then our group is going to be done by group. And then we are going to go over the settings and customize tests and choose Mann Whitney U, 2 samples, and then hit run. And in the Mann Whitney U test, it's reported a little bit differently. So when you look at it here, it gives you the null hypothesis, and then what test we did, and then the significance. So the significance is 0.366, and the decision would be to retain the null hypothesis. So that means there is no difference. You can see listed here, the significance level is 0.05, and this number here is your p-value, and it is not less than 0.05. So it is not a significant difference. And so we retain the null hypothesis that states there is no difference. And then farther down, you can see some of the output that comes with this. These are frequency tables and some additional information on the different groups. But really what you're looking to get is sort of the answer that's right in here for the Mann Whitney U. So both the t-test and the Mann Whitney U showed us that there is not a significant difference between the placebo and the formula group in getting the number of hours of sleep.